So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on digital technology for sustainable agriculture. My name is Rita Ben-Othman, and I will be your moderator for this session. So today we have gathered to explore the innovative ways in which technology such as IoTs, artificial intelligence, are revolutionizing the agriculture sector. Throughout this session, we encourage you to actively participate by asking questions and sharing your thoughts in the chat. We will also open a Q&A session by the end of the presentation. And before we begin, I would like to express our gratitude to our partners for their support to make this session happen, particularly the US mission in Rabat, and also the Ministry of Agriculture, Fishery, Rural Development, Water and Forests. So I am pleased to invite Mr. Mashoutmi Shishak, Acting Economic Counselor at US Embassy Rabat, for opening remarks.
Bonjour, salam alaikum. Good afternoon to you all from the US Embassy here in Rabat. Thank you all for joining us for the final webinar in the Speaker Program series, brought to you by the US Embassy in Morocco and the Agency for Digital Development, and of course in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Rural Development, Water and Forests, as has just been mentioned by Rita. I'd like to thank ADD for the wonderful support, particularly again, Mrs. Abeja, Rita Ben-Othman, for your support of this speaker series, and of course our US Embassy public diplomacy colleagues who made the series possible. I know we all have covered a lot of ground over the past few weeks, and I hope you found the participants have found the discussions informative and inspiring. I'd like to thank all the speakers who to date have shared their expertise with us. We're extremely grateful for the contributions. With that said, it's a pleasure to kick off today's webinar, which is, as has already been mentioned, on digital technology for sustainable agriculture. Not to repeat what has already been said, but today we'll be discussing cutting-edge technologies and their applications in enhancing agricultural productivity, optimizing resource management, and mitigating environmental impacts. While this series concludes today, we're excited to explore the prospects of other series on cutting-edge topics in the future. But rather than listening now to me speak any further, let's get to our expert speaker as soon as possible. So let me turn it back to Rita. And once again, thank you everybody for joining and participating. And thank you to our speaker today as well.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, Rita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shishak. And it was planned to have with us Mr. Majid Lahlou, which is Director for Information Systems at the Ministry of Agriculture, Fishery, Rural Development, Water and Forests. But due to death in his family today, he really apologizes for not being able to join us for that session. And now, please let me invite Mrs. Khouloud Abrcha, Director of Digital Transformation at the Agency for Digital Development, for her welcoming remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar on digital technology for sustainable agriculture. It is my great pleasure to have you all join us today for this insightful session. Firstly, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed co-organizers, the US Embassy in Morocco and the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Rural Development, Water and Forests. Your collaboration and support has been instrumental in making this event possible. As we gather here today, we stand on the brink of a new era in agriculture, one that harnesses the power of digital technology to revolutionize our practices and promote sustainability. Our goal for this webinar is to explore the innovative ways in which technologies such as IoT, AI, and blockchain are transforming the agricultural sector, enhancing productivity, optimizing resource management, and reducing environmental impact. We are honored to have with us Mr. Ranveer Chandra, the Managing Director of Research for Industry and the CTO of Agri-Food at Microsoft. His expertise and insights will undoubtedly provide us with valuable perspectives on the application of digital solutions in agriculture. Today's session will also feature case studies and success stories from around the world, showcasing how digital technology is driving sustainable agriculture practices. We hope these examples will inspire and motivate us to embrace these advancements and integrate them into our own practices. On this occasion, I would like briefly to emphasize that our agency is committed to supporting businesses from various sectors in their journey towards digitalization and transformation. In this regard, we have implemented several initiatives, including Muqawala Raqmiya platform that offers a self-assessment system for the digital maturity of Moroccan businesses across different sectors, including agriculture, catering specifically to very small and medium enterprises. Smart Factory project that consists in establishing a digital factory model with real production lines tailored to the needs of local stakeholders and an advanced technological ecosystem. This project is currently under development in collaboration with the Fez Smart Factory Consortium in Fez City. Last but not least, Academia Raqmiya, a national and inclusive e-learning platform offering an online training in digital skills for the citizens, public sector, and businesses, SMEs, and startups to enhance their competencies. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to each one of you for your participation. Your presence here is a testament to your commitment to advancing the agricultural sector and promoting sustainability. I encourage you to engage actively in the discussions and share your insights and experiences. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Khouloud. And now let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's webinar, Mr. Ranveer Chandra. He is the Managing Director for Research for Industry and CTO at Agri-Food at Microsoft. Previously, Ranveer was the Chief Scientist of Microsoft Azure Global. Ranveer has over 100 research publications and holds over 150 patents granted by the USPTO. His research has been cited by the popular press, such as The Economist, MIT Technology Review, BBC, Scientific American, etc. And he is an IEEE Fellow and an ACM Fellow, and has won several awards. He was recently recognized by the Newsweek magazine as America's 50 Most Disruptive Innovators in 2021. And Ranveer has an undergraduate degree from IIT Kharagpur in India, and also a PhD from Cornell University. Thank you very much, Mr. Ranveer, for accepting our invitation. And without further delay, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rita, for the introduction. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So hello, everyone, and good evening. I know most of you are calling in from Morocco. I'm really happy to be giving this talk, and mostly because I want to engage more with the people on the ground in Morocco. So I was in Morocco that was about 10 years back is when I went to Casablanca, to Marrakesh and Rabat for work. And I was very impressed seeing the Moroccan landscape, the Moroccan people, the Moroccan culture, the Moroccan food, and also learn about how agriculture plays such an important role to the Moroccan economy, and how there are so many farmers, and despite the challenges around water scarcity, around climate change, Morocco is still doing quite well as a country in agriculture. Today, what I'll talk about is some of the work we have been doing is in addition to bring data and AI to agriculture and the value it brings. So the question you would ask is, so before I start, I did want to mention that my background is not in agriculture. I'm not, my PhD is in computer science. I did grow up. I spent a lot of time growing up in farms in India. So this is in northern India. But as it happens in India, when your parents would typically in the summer or winter vacation drop you off at your grandparents' place. And that used to happen the first 18 years of my life. I would spend 3 months in the summer, 1 month in the winter in these farms, these villages in India. Back then, I did not like anything to do with agriculture. These villages, they did not have they did not have electricity, they did not have toilets. So I wasn't really looking forward to visiting these farms. That said, I did see a lot of very primitive forms of agriculture, a lot of poverty, things like hand-based seeding, bullock-driven tractors, and so on. And that is something that I've always wanted to work on, is looking at ways to improve the lives of the farmers in that region. But the work we are doing is beyond that. What we are trying to do is help address the world's food problem. But before that, I also wanted to mention one more thing. The question many of you might ask is, what is the role of data and artificial intelligence in agriculture? So, when I would spend the time in farms, and even when I started this effort at Microsoft, I went and volunteered in multiple farms across the US, and I visited farms around the world. What I realized is that farmers, they know a lot about the farm. Like, there's a farmer here close to Microsoft campus in Seattle. This farmer could feel the soil and say what's going on. There is a farmer in upstate New York. He would taste the soil and say what's going on. They know a lot about the farm that they're working on because they've been farming there for several years, sometimes decades, sometimes even generations. The thing is, even though they know a lot about the farm that they are farming in, a lot of decisions they take is based on guesswork. So our role of data and AI is not to replace a farmer, but to augment a farmer's decisions with data and AI, to remove guesswork, but instead augment the farmer's knowledge with data and with artificial intelligence so that the decisions they make, such as when to water, when to fertilize, where to sell, a lot of those decisions are taken based on data. So that is the vision. The problem we are trying to address is the world's food problem. That is, as many of you know, the world needs to grow more food. We need to grow 50% more food to feed the growing population of the world. And it is not just about growing more food. We need to grow good, nutritious food. And we need to grow this good, nutritious food without harming the planet. The soils are not getting any richer. The water levels are receding. There's not much more arable land. There's climate change. So the question then is, despite all of these challenges, how can we grow more food, more good, nutritious food to feed the growing population of the world? At Microsoft, our vision is that one of the ways in which we can help address the world food problem is that of a data-driven agri-food system. That is, if you can make the entire agriculture and food value chain, all the way from input companies to agriculture retail farmers, logistics providers, food processors, food distributors, retailers, even the consumer, if every entity in the food value chain can start to use data and artificial intelligence, it improves efficiencies throughout the agriculture and food value chain. But it doesn't just stop here. If every entity in the food value chain could start sharing the data with one another, this then leads to new efficiencies. This unlocks new business models around track and trace, around nutrition, around sustainability. For example, imagine if over here we are eating some olives and we are told that it all came from Morocco, and in this farm, this is the amount of water that was used and no child labor was used. Now that adds value to the produce that's coming from the farm. So at Microsoft, we have been working on different aspects of this entire data-driven agri-food system, all the way from the farm. I'll spend a lot of time talking about what we are doing on the farm, to the food supply chain, and also on food R&D. So on the food supply chain, our vision is that of a transparent food value chain. That is, you should be able to carry information all the way from the farm through the supply chain, all the way to the retailer, to the consumer. You should be able to take any piece of produce or any food item and be able to see how it was produced, how it was transported, how it was stored, and all of that information. Of course, when I tell this problem to people, the first reaction is, blockchain solves the problem. But blockchain addresses only part of the problem. The bigger problem is, what do you put on the blockchain? So towards that, we have been looking at various ways to do hands-free digitization of the food supply chain. That is, can you capture this information without manual input? So, for example, in the team, we have been looking at all the way from things like encoding the information in the DNA of material. Like, for example, instead of the barcode that you put on food items, can you actually encode all of that information in the DNA of the material? The other thing we are looking at is using a knowledge graph. Can you model the entire supply chain as a knowledge graph and then use these multi-agent systems to reason about the supply chain, to reduce food waste, to make sure that, whenever there are disruptions that happen in the supply chain, you can route around those, you can be more efficient. The third thing on the right is what we are looking at is using artificial intelligence to improve food production. So for example, using AI for physics, AI for chemistry, AI for biology, the question we are asking is, can you come up with that perfect ingredient which has that right flavor, that right nutrition, that right taste, that right smell, the right texture to make your food appropriate for the person who's eating? Things, for example, can you come up with high protein bread? Can you come up with the alternatives to sugar, sweeteners? So those are some of the problems that we're looking at on the right. Today, I'll focus mostly on the first piece, which is on the left, which is on what does it take to drive data-driven agriculture? So when we talk about data-driven agriculture, one of the things with agriculture is that it also has a big impact on climate change. Agriculture is one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases. It's not just one of the biggest emitters, it's also one of the most impacted by climate change. Farmers, they rely a lot on predictable weather, given that if there is unexpected rains, unexpected heat, drought, floods, they all affect agriculture. So agriculture is not only one of the biggest emitters, it's also one of the most impacted by climate change. But the third thing is that if agriculture is done right, it could be one of the solutions to reduce for climate change, for carbon removal as well. That is, you could use plants, because of photosynthesis, they could actually remove some of the carbon from the air. And if you use the right agricultural practices, it can store some of that carbon in soil. So one of the things we've been looking at the intersection of agriculture and climate change and agricultural productivity is that of data-driven agriculture. What we mean by that is, one of the things you could do is if you could map every farm in the world, like what you're seeing here with data, like, for example, the soil moisture level, soil nutrient level, soil carbon level. If you could map this information for farms, it could enable techniques like precision agriculture. With precision agriculture, many of you must be aware, you could then do site-specific application of inputs. You could apply water where it is needed, pesticide where it is needed, nutrients where it is needed, fertilizer where it is needed. The thing is, and also regenerative agriculture practices could be enabled if you had maps like this. Precision agriculture has been shown to improve yields. You can take care of plants better. It has been shown to reduce cost. You would use less of the inputs. It's also better for the environment for the same reasons. You're not putting in more chemicals than are needed. You're not wasting water. The thing is, precision agriculture as a technique was proposed back in the 80s. It's been 40 years since then, more than 40 years. And the technology still hasn't taken off. And the biggest reason the technology hasn't taken off, especially in the emerging markets, is the cost of high data collection. The manual data collection. And this is the report by USDA, and more recently, this is from 2 years back, this was a report by McKinsey, which says that the reason a lot of these technologies hasn't taken off is because of cost, because of unclear return of investment, and the expectation being too high. So that has been one of the reasons why this hasn't really taken off. So at Microsoft, we have been looking at ways to reduce the cost of data-driven agriculture solutions. So one of the first things we looked at was, why are these solutions so expensive? It's one of the biggest reasons is connectivity in the middle of the farm. Farmer's house has some sort of internet access, But a lot of data of the farm could be a few miles away. So the question then is, how do you bring the data from the middle of the farm to the farmer's house? To answer this question, one of the things that we use, this is my research from a few years back, was one of the techniques we use is that of TV white spaces. What the TV white spaces enables is, imagine if you had a Wi-Fi router that you could access a few miles away. Right now, as soon as you leave your building, your Wi-Fi disappears. And the way we did that is we took these Wi-Fi signals and put them in empty TV channels. This is TV you watch using antennas. When you browse through TV on certain channels, you get a transmission. The other channels, all you see is white noise. The technology we built was a way to take these Wi-Fi signals and put them in these noisy TV channels in a way that doesn't interfere with your TV reception in an adjacent channel. So you could be watching channel 7 at home. On channel 8, we could be sending Wi-Fi signals. And the reason this is so cool is that compared to Wi-Fi at the same power levels, in UHF TV channels, your signals go 4 times farther. In VHF, they go 12 times farther. And that's in free space. Once you put in trees, crops, canopies, your signals just keep going through. So this is a technology we built for here. We worked with the FCC. The FCC actually made this legal in the US in 2022 for rural areas with high power, higher antennas, using which you can cover long distances. This has also been used in different parts of the world. Like most recently, I came to hear about palm plantations in Malaysia, where now they're using this technology to connect farms. Most recently, one of the things we've been looking at is going beyond terrestrial solutions to space-based solutions. Like, for example, one of the things we've worked with a partner is to launch these low-cost, low-power IoT satellites. These satellites are very tiny. They go up in space, and you don't need to modify the chip on the ground. You just get the antennas and point them up to the sky. And then these low-cost satellites can then capture the data and bring it back to the ground. So the key takeaway here for you is that, if we talk of data-driven agriculture, the number one problem we need to address is connectivity in the middle of the farm, either using the TV spectrum, using satellites, using low-power LTE, or any other solution. We need to bring data from the middle of the farm, a lot of which doesn't have good internet access worldwide. But once you get the data, actually, there's a question. Should I answer the question now? Ima, there's a question.
Yes, I see some.
I can answer the questions while people are asking, while people are listening to it.
If you want, or we can let the questions by the end of the session, so we can have like a discussion and Q&A. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So Ima, please hold on to your question. I'll get to you.
Yeah.
So
thank you very much.
So the second point we had to address was, when we talk of building these accurate maps, because one of the reasons these technologies haven't been adopted is because it's hard to create maps like the one I showed initially. So if I give you this map and I ask you the question, what is the soil moisture level 6 inches below the surface throughout the farm? If you ask soil scientists and others these questions, they say if you want to build an accurate map, say for water, nutrients, you need lots and lots of samples, but taking lots of samples or putting lots of sensors is expensive to deploy, to manage. It'll come in the way of the farmer as the farmer does the day-to-day job. So the question we asked is the last question that you're seeing here. Can we build a map like this using very few sensors or very few soil samples? In order to address that, the way we go about doing it is either we fly a drone and then we take this aerial image like the one you're seeing here. If you don't have a drone, what we built, this was still in research, is using a helium-filled balloon. A balloon is like this big, it's 4 feet in diameter. What we built was a weatherproof mount where a farmer could place their smartphone with the camera facing down and a battery pack attached to it. This thing could stay up from 4 to 7 days taking images of the farm. This is tethered to the ground, right? And it's taking images of the farm. In fact, in places where labor is inexpensive, someone could just walk around with the balloon and the camera, and you could then start taking images of the entire farm. And then we use computer vision techniques to stabilize the imagery. Because, with drone, your camera is always facing down. If this camera is on a balloon, it moves around with the wind. The camera is not always facing down. So then we had to use computer vision techniques to stabilize the imagery. And if you don't have either drone or a balloon, we use satellites to capture this image. And, once you have this image, so by the way, for the drone stuff, you could see Bill Gates's video. Bill Gates shot a video in the farm that we deployed things here. He created a Gates Notes video. You can see him walking around with the balloon. So, and in other places, we use satellite imagery to create these images. Once we have the aerial image, we then use AI techniques to figure out where do you need to put your sensors or where do you need to take the soil samples, because you don't need to do it uniformly. And once you do those, we then use machine learning models so that wherever you have a sensor and wherever you have the aerial image, we use that to create the model. And we use that model to predict these values in other parts of the farm where you don't have a sensor. We've done this for soil temperature, soil moisture, soil pH, most recently for soil nutrients, soil carbon. And in the paper that we wrote, we showed that using this multimodal technique of using sensors and aerial imagery, you are able to create 3 times more accurate maps than existing schemes that do not use this multimodal method. They use one of the modalities. One example of this multimodal technique is, for example, using satellite imagery. Right now with satellite images, what you get is the image that you're seeing on the left, because most of the satellite imagery is cloudy. The question we asked is, can you create the images like the one you're seeing on the right? The way we could see through the clouds is by using another satellite. So we use the optical satellite, we use a radar satellite. Radar signals, they go through the clouds, they reflect differently from different surfaces, and depending on if the soil is dry or wet, and we use that to predict what the values are under the clouds. As you can see, you can tell when the farm was irrigated, when emergence happened, when tilling happened, a lot of that, even though the current images were cloudy. And the way we are able to do it is by using multimodal artificial intelligence. We combine data from optical images and synthetic aperture radar to create these kind of images below the clouds. So at Microsoft, we've been building these tools for quite a few years, and we've taken these multimodal techniques and we've released them in open source. So if you go on GitHub, if you go to farmvibes.ai, FARMVIBES, you'll see a lot of these we've released over 65 workflows for agriculture in open source. So you can go there to GitHub and start using a lot of these multimodal AI techniques right now. Things like, spatiotemporal fusion, what I talked about, SpaceEye, heat maps, land cover labeling, carbon labeling, and many of these carbon yield maps, what if analysis, and so on. And as I said, this is all in open source. You should go to GitHub, search for project FarmVibes, FARMVIBES, and you should be able to start using this code and start building on top of it. This is all available under the MIT license. The third challenge is, I talked about how you could bring a lot of this data to the farmer's house, but the connectivity from the farmer's house to the cloud is often weak. Like, for example, if you fly a drone, in a 15-minute drone flight, you could be generating several gigabytes of data. Sending these gigabytes of data to the cloud for processing becomes very difficult, becomes very expensive. So our key insight was that many farmers, they have a PC. If they don't have a PC, we'll ship them a PC laptop that they can keep in the farm. And this PC, that's this edge device, does a lot of compute sitting in the farmer's house or office. It gets data from sensors, it gets data from drones, it does orthomosaicing, it does the 3D point clouds, create these heat maps. The last column is something we don't do. We work with partners to deliver this to customers. At the bottom layer, we also get data from cameras, microphones. We run large language models, small language models, and we are able to then generate insights. A lot of this data is lazily synced with the cloud. Even when this edge is disconnected, we have a web server using which we can start offering insights. So, we've deployed this in various farms. I just wanted to show how people are using it. One of the things you could do with these sensors and artificial intelligence is if you put a sensor in the ground, we can not only tell you what the values are right now, but we can also tell you what these values will be a few days in the future. Like here, for example, we are predicting soil moisture and soil temperature. And if you look at the red bars, the error is less than 8% for even up to 5 days in advance. The way we do that is we take a look at the reason this is important is, because the weather in the middle of the farm could be very different from the weather at the weather station. Existing weather services do a really good job of predicting the weather at the weather station, but in the middle of the farm, things could be very different. So the way we do that is we take the data from the weather stations and use the prediction from the weather stations to correlate it with the weather in the farm and then make very hyper-local microclimate predictions. So for example, at the bottom left, you're seeing a testimonial by a farmer that we work with. He's in Eastern Washington. he was looking to, there was a particular part of the farm which had a lot of weeds. He was looking to spray chemicals in that part of the farm. He looked at the weather prediction. The weather prediction said it would be 42 degrees Fahrenheit. And we predicted it was going to be 31 degrees. The actual was 30 degrees Fahrenheit. This is below freezing. And it is good he listened to us and he did not spray chemicals, because otherwise he would have lost his crop. This is one place where AI helped him save his crop. This is another use case where, this is a 4-kilometer stretch where this is a farmer in upstate New York. He wanted to know how his cows are doing when they're out in pasture. So we flew the drone, transmitted the data over the white spaces, and within 30 minutes, we could flag things like from left to right, the grass is growing back well. There is a water puddle that needs to be fixed before the next planting season. The cows are pooping well, which is also important information for the farmer. This is where the cows are. This is a stray cow that needs to be herded in. All of this within 30 minutes of flying the drone. This is this is a farm close to Microsoft campus. We show the farmer these beautiful pictures and we overlay this with data. For example, this is a soil moisture map. We were able to flag that the bottom left part of the farm is still moist, even though we did not have a sensor over there. This is after the farmer had applied lime. We were able to flag that the dark parts of the farm are still acidic. The farmer needs to reapply lime before planting the seeds. This is a farm in upstate New York where we put multiple cameras. We're able to see how the cows are moving, whether a cow is sick, and so on, like a baby monitor for cows. Again, if you think of it, you need all the innovations that I talked about with connectivity, with edge compute, with artificial intelligence to light up any of these scenarios. So there's this farmer whose video you'll see soon. We've been working with him for a few years, and he looked at the different stages of that he's been of farming, all the way from pre-planting to planting to post-planting, and how he's been applying all the AI, all the technology that we've been providing him. And even in emergence, after post-emergence, what do you do? Crop harvest, how he's using data and artificial intelligence, even during harvest and post-harvest. And the value that he's seeing is quite huge. There's one of the chemicals that he needed 38% of that chemical, which was the actual use was a $6-figure number. He needed he saved more than 38% of that chemical that had to be used. There was a particular part of the farm where he could double the yield based on the recommendations that we have provided. So in addition to doing all of this stuff with farmers and building things into products, one of the other things we have been doing is working with the community. So what we built was, one of the things we built is a FarmBeats student kit. What this FarmBeats student kit does is it's a kit for high school students. So, when students are in high school, we partnered with the FFA, which is Future Farmers of America. And with them, we are taking this FarmBeats student kit. We worked with the high school teachers to create a curriculum. The key goal for this was to bridge the rural skilling gap. In rural America, there are lots of students and they don't get skilled on data and AI. With this, we wanted to train them on data and AI using technologies, using a field, agriculture, that they were familiar with. But there's another reason why I got so excited about this project is, my hope is that using these FarmBeats student kits and teaching students in high school about how data and AI can improve agriculture, we can make agriculture cool again. A lot of the younger generation of farmers, they don't want to get into farming. They want to do something else. With this, we want to show how you can bring the latest in technology, latest in AI, latest in drones, latest in robotics, latest in hardware, everything to agriculture. So, I did want to talk a little bit about some of the newer things that we're working on as well. We like some of the things I talked about are more mature, but we still haven't reached to a vision. Our vision is to democratize data-driven agriculture. We want a farmer anywhere in the world to be able to use data and AI. One of the challenges is that existing sensors are very expensive. Like, for example, if you try to put these soil moisture or soil EC, electrical conductivity sensors, they cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. The key idea we had was that, many farmers around the world, like, you can think of farmers in Morocco, many of them, the small farmers, they won't buy a sensor, which is thousands of dollars, but many of them have a smartphone. If they have a smartphone, the smartphone has a Wi-Fi chipset. So the key idea then was if the smartphone has a Wi-Fi chipset, if you could measure the time of flight of these Wi-Fi signals, the time of flight of an electromagnetic signal depends on the permittivity of the material. That is, if the soil is moist, it will take longer to traverse the same distance. So if you could measure the time of flight, you can use it to start measuring soil moisture and soil EC. But the challenge is, this time is of the order of nanoseconds. So then the next question was, if you cannot, measuring in nanoseconds is difficult, but the other next insight was that most of the Wi-Fi chipsets in these phones have multiple antennas. So instead of measuring the absolute time of flight, if you could measure the relative time of flight between those antennas, you could then use it to measure soil moisture and soil EC. So this was done with my intern, Gian, who's at Yale now. And we showed that you can actually measure the soil moisture and soil electrical conductivity using Wi-Fi signals. So anyone with a smartphone can start measuring these parameters. In fact, we showed it to Bill Gates when he visited the farm, and the title of his Gates Notes blog was, "Can the Wi-Fi in the phone help feed the world?" So we started working on this. And then in 2020, I was actually giving this talk at the National Academies in the US. And one of the people in the audience in my talk was Professor Ratan Lal, who won the World Food Prize in 2021. I think it was 21. So when Professor Lal saw it, he was like, hey, if you can measure soil moisture, we can use it to measure soil carbon, which was really cool. So then we've been funding a postdoc, and very recently, we just got a paper accepted in a top tier conference, a computer science conference, where we show that using a smartphone, using Wi-Fi and the camera that you have, you can start approximating soil carbon, which is huge. Now you don't need to take a sample, send it to the soil lab, spend $20 and wait 2 weeks. Immediately you can start taking the samples and start measuring this. This is still in research, but the results are very, very positive. We are very excited about what you could do with this. So now just shifting gears a little bit, I talked about the vision that we had was that we'll make data-driven agriculture possible. Any farmer anywhere in the world should start using data and AI to make better decisions. So we started with a data platform. How do you collect a lot of that data? That became a Microsoft product. That was called Project FarmBeats, which is now a product called Microsoft Azure Data Manager for Agriculture, where there's several companies building their solutions on top of that. The next thing we did was multimodal AI, the FarmVibes.ai capabilities. But the challenge was always, how do you get these insights to anyone in the agriculture value chain? Like in an app, you could try to get an app, but that becomes very cumbersome. So this is where the new disruption that has happened with generative AI, things like ChatGPT, have been so important, and they can bridge this important gap in delivering any of these insights to anyone in the agriculture value chain. So when this came out, we started looking at various personas in the entire agriculture value chain, all the way from a farmer to an agronomist, policymaker, banker, supply chain provider, ag-retailer, everyone, and started seeing how can they use generative AI to improve what they're doing, to do it better. So one of the first things we did is we said, let's do it for Washington State. So in Washington State, we said, let's go about and look at all of Washington State, and for any farm for which we can start getting the data. Here, for example, this is Azure Data Manager for Agriculture on the left. That is, with Azure Data Manager for Agriculture, you could specify a polygon. A polygon could be a farm, a field, a plot. And for that polygon, we'll bring together large amounts of data. So we have connectors for satellites, tractors, sensors, drones, a lot of that. So you can bring all of that data in one place in the cloud with a common data model. Once you do that, then what we do is for all of those farms on a periodic basis, we'll run the FarmVibes.ai I talked about, a buyer who's building their solutions on top of Azure Data Manager for Agriculture to create a farm context. What is the farm context? The farm context is when has the seeding happened, what crop has been planted, what chemicals have been applied. So when someone asks a question, like for example, what should I be planting in my farm, or what is the expected yield in my farm? Suppose that's the question you would be asking this Copilot. So then to that, what we would do is we would augment that prompt with farm context, saying if someone asks a question, what should I be, what chemical do I need to be applying in my farm? You would then add to that prompt things like, this is a farm in Eastern Washington. This farm has planted wheat. This planting date is so-and-so. The chemicals applied have been so-and-so. All that becomes a larger prompt. We then augment it with agricultural knowledge. This comes from the USDA, where we then bring all of that together, we then send that prompt to GPT-4 and come back with an answer, which tells what the farmer should do. So for example, the farmer can say, what is the health and vigor of my crop? We not only tell what it is, but we can plot it in a graph. You can say, what do NDVI values mean? We can start providing answers to that. What has been applied to each of my farm? What is the health of the crops in seeding? This is a set of questions, 25 questions that was given to us by a smallholder farmer close to Microsoft campus. For 21 of the 25 questions, he gave the answers that the AI gave, 5 out of 5. For the others, he gave it a 3 out of 4. This is budget questions. Farmers, they can ask budget level questions. What should I be doing in the farm? How will it affect my P&L? And we can start answering those as well in natural language. So then something interesting happened. I was in World Agri-Tech in San Francisco last year, and a venture capitalist, he came to me and said, hey, can your AI help pass the agronomist exam? So, in the US, if you have to be a certified agronomist, you need to take this test, the Certified Crop Advisor test. So we said, okay, let's try it out. We tried GPT-3.5 and GPT-4, and GPT-4, with the modifications that we did to the prompting strategies, we were able to get 93% grades in this Certified Crop Advisor exam. So, in the US, a lot of times agronomists will say, listen to me, I've passed this exam. And here you had an AI that could get 93% grades. In Embrapa for Brazil, these are long form questions, long form answers, not multiple choice. We were able to get 84% grades. In the India Agri exam, we were able to get 79% grades. The number one human got 78% grades. So you can see how an AI agronomist could make a lot of sense. Rather than always waiting for a human agronomist, you could actually ask an AI agronomist. This could be an app, an agent who you could call and get answers. So when we got these, we published a paper. I put this on LinkedIn. And, I got 2 sets of responses. The first set of responses came from the agronomists themselves. They were like, hey, passing an exam doesn't mean that you can be an agronomist, which I agree with. I was like, we're not saying this could be an agronomist replacement, but this could be a very powerful agronomist assistant. How much information will an agronomist remember? With this, you can actually get, you could get a lot of information to any agronomist. The thing is, even though the answers come out right, GPT also makes mistakes. Like, for example, if you ask this question, who is the advocate of the Martander Rural Development Program? The AI, well, it didn't know the answer. It tried to make an intelligent guess. It thought it was a question from India, so the answer should be an Indian. It came up with the answer saying Mahatma Gandhi, but it wasn't. It was Spencer Hatch. So then we looked at another problem. We said, what if we take a large model, GPT-4, and fine-tune it for agriculture? And the reason we want to do it is, suppose you had a question, what is the best time to plant trees and shrubs? Depending on where you are, whether you're in Georgia, Arkansas, Connecticut, the answer is different. But GPT-4 would typically suggest fall for all 3 states. So then we went on a big exercise. We said, okay, what if we take this huge model, GPT-4, and fine-tune it? That is, modify the model with good, high-quality agricultural data. So that's what we ended up doing, and we compared with the standard method, which is known as retrieval augmented generation, the way people use copilots right now. And we compared both of these methods. And, the results, there is an entire paper that we've written on it. The key takeaway is that existing methods of retrieval augmented generation work nearly as well as fine-tuning. For our data set, we got a 6% improvement in accuracy if we actually modified the model with agricultural data. But the key takeaway was the last thing that you're seeing here is, GPT-4 showed insights, showed this initial capability to answer questions even if it was not in the training data set. Like, for example, we looked at 50 states across the US, and we said, for each state, if we look at common questions that were common across multiple states, and we said, what if we kept only questions for 3 states and removed it for the other states? How well can GPT-4 answer these questions for the states for which it did not have the data when fine-tuning the model? And the results were quite impressive. That is, GPT-4 by itself could answer 47% of those questions correctly. With fine-tuning, we were able to get it to 72%. Because, this can then answer questions like, suppose there's a farmer in Morocco who asks a question, hey, I'm seeing these brown spots on leaves. What should I be doing? Imagine a large model that says, hey, based on the data that I have from the Moroccan Department of Agriculture, I don't know what the answer is to this question for brown spots on leaves. but your growing conditions match a lot of what's happening in, say, Brazil, in this part of the region, or say in the UAE. Based on the growing conditions, this is what you should be doing in your farm. And we saw some of those capabilities with fine tuning, which was very, very impressive. The other thing that we started looking at was multimodal GPT, like, for example, not just text, but images. There are a lot of apps on the App Store where you can go to the app and, you take a picture, it'll tell you what's going on. Here with multimodal AI, it will not only tell you what it is, it will tell you why it thinks what it is. And you can then have a conversation with it. Like, for example, here, what is this worm? I'm a cotton farmer in India. It can go about analyzing this as well. And here, for example, it will say, based on the location of the flower and its appearance, it could be a caterpillar of the cotton bollworm, even though it's not very visible. This was a very interesting use case. This is a farmer. This says, I'm a chili farmer in India. I'm seeing this disease. What is it? And then it is able to go and analyze it. And then in this case, it says it's a root knot nematode. Then I asked the question, are you sure it is not root rot? Because that is what we got from the people in India who gave us labeled data. This was the agronomist's recommendation. We sent the information back, and then we asked it. We said, "Are you sure it is not root rot?" It says the AI says it could be. It is possible root rot could also be present, but the presence of galls on the roots is a characteristic symptom of root knot nematode, which was very cool. We sent it back, and the agronomist said, "Yep, you're actually right. The AI is right. We made a mistake in labeling in labeling this." This is a friend of mine. He lives in India. He's asked this question. I'm a farmer in India. I planted Baidagi chilies. It's super low rainfall. It has been irrigated using sprinklers, and I'm seeing small holes in leaves. What is wrong with my plant, and what could be causing it? If you give it to GPT-4 Vision, it first gives you these generic answers. It says it could be flea beetles, leaf miners, slugs, anything. But you give it another picture, it says, based on this additional picture, it appears to be bacterial leaf spot. You give it another one, it confirms. It says, yep, it is bacterial leaf spot. You can then ask Bing AI, and it's going to come back and tell you, based on bacterial leaf spot, these are the chemicals that you should be applying. So actually, just let me reshare because I forgot to share the audio on the video, but I did want to conclude with one of the videos with small language models. So just a second. So I'll play this video.
Xavier Nelson. I'm a fifth-generation farmer in Eastern Washington State. I wanted to show you a few things that we've been talking about in the meeting. So the first one is our Space IoT. As you can see, it is a sensor that is connected up to the ground and sending those results all the way up to space to then be recorded. That soil moisture sensor is actually going to be increasing since we got a much needed rain yesterday. Throughout the past 6 years, we have been working with Microsoft on technology throughout the farm. And one of the other things I want to show you is the FarmVibes chatbot. This chatbot is disconnected, doesn't need any internet, which is great because even though I do sometimes have cell service, I usually have no actual cell data. And we have one Starlink, but to roll it out onto all of our tractors and sprayers and combines is very cost prohibitive. So here's my chatbot. It has all of my manuals in it, and I'm going to ask it a question. How much hydraulic oil does it take to fill a 9R John Deere tractor? So that can go and parse hundreds of pages of my manuals for my combine, my sprayer, my tractors. My specific tractor had a hydraulic line blow last Friday, and to find the place in that tractor for the information took a long time.
The hydraulic oil capacity for a 9R John Deere tractor is...
So as you can see here, it tells us what we need to know. And it will even speak it out. This took me about 15 minutes to find in the 500-page manual for our tractor. I hope you enjoyed, and I also invite you out to our farm to see all the different projects that we're doing here with Microsoft and really how AI can help us revitalize rural America. Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, I wanted to conclude. In the last video that you saw, it was running a small model on the edge itself. So not just a large model in the cloud, but it is a small model that you could be running even when you're disconnected. So with that, I wanted to conclude by saying a few things. One is, we are very excited about data-driven agriculture, and we believe that is the future. If we can empower every farmer in the world with data and AI, it will lead to new efficiencies. It will improve their livelihoods. It improves the food that they produce. It will improve agriculture. It's better for the planet. Not just that, one of the other things I wanted to tell all of you, because you're interested in this agriculture, in the space of agriculture, is the role that artificial intelligence can play. So I would recommend all of you to start using AI, to start using ChatGPT, generative AI, but also think of ways in which this can be applied to agriculture. One of the things that has happened with when the internet has come out, and the internet's been around for close to been popular, prevalent for over 30 years, in fact, much more, we've seen a digital divide. There is still over 2 billion people in the world who do not have access to the internet. If we are not careful, similar to when there was a digital divide, we'll run into an AI divide. There will be many farmers who would not benefit from AI. And it's upon us, on all of us who build technologies, who build solutions for agriculture, when I say us, it's not just technologists, it's people who are in academia, who do research, people who do business, policymakers. It's upon all of us to come up with ways to truly democratize AI, democratize data-driven agriculture and AI-driven agriculture. If we can do that for agriculture, it will help address a lot of problems that we have with our food and agriculture system right now. So thank you. Thanks again for giving me the opportunity to present.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ranvir, for your insightful presentation, and thank you for sharing with us your expertise around how digital can be used to assess farmers, how it can be used to increase the productivity, to predict some issues about agriculture. So now maybe I can we can maybe take the first question we have, and also I invite all participants to ask questions, and thank you very much. And see the chat. I have some.
Yeah, I see one question. What are some of the most promising advances in precision agriculture? Yes, I think I answered some of these in the talk. So I think data and AI is going to be critical in helping us understand what. So, I think of data and AI as 3 key capabilities. One is to even understand what the problems are. Second is to model. And the third is to fix. So come up with ways to address that, to fix it. I think we lost you, Rita. Can you hear me? I don't know if others can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So there was another question from Rashid Zakaria, who says, what are the main prerequisites for developing smart agriculture and the use of data and AI in agriculture in a country like Morocco? So, the key thing I will say is Morocco adds, and every geography that way adds some unique constraints. Like, for example, here, one would be language, right? You need to make sure that we support the language in Morocco. The culture is different. The policies are different because, for example, in Morocco, the Moroccan government is coming up with ways to support more agriculture, with smart irrigation techniques. So the policies are different in every country. The language is different. The crops, in some cases, are different. So we need to make sure that when we are providing recommendations. We are not just taking recommendations from another country and directly applying it, but we are grounding it in the local, with the local policies, with the local documents, with the local practices, with the local weather. So when people are building some of these AI techniques, I would encourage entrepreneurs and researchers and students in Morocco to develop solutions that work really well for your local geography. And that would mean taking the documents that exist in Morocco and trying to use the language. And please do reach out. I would love to stay connected and guide you as you're trying to build solutions that work really well for your country. So the second question is from Yusuf, who's saying, I addressed the farming yield side. What about the post-farming side? Yeah, that was the second pillar. I talked about 3 pillars of the work. First is on farming, the second is on the supply chain, and the third is on R&D for agriculture or for food. So the second piece is where we're doing a bunch of work on post-farming. The key thing we are looking at is around transparency. How do you capture information and carry it with the produce along the entire food value chain? So we are thinking of things like, the first part we're looking at is how do you store, where do you sell, who do you sell to, what's the right price on which you sell, to how do you even carry information? How do you like, for example, if a farmer is using the right practices in the farm, how do you monetize it by carrying this information through the food supply chain? And all of those eventually boil down to the use of data and artificial intelligence. So that's key in helping answer some of these supply chain questions. The next question. So Rita, you're back, right? Yeah. I think you're back.
Yes, I with my. So then maybe the second, the following question is about the advantages, about drawbacks.
Yeah. What about the disadvantages? With the key thing that I feel concerned about which is about not a disadvantage, but the thing that's at the back of my mind is, are we really democratizing data-driven agriculture? Are we making sure that it is available to everyone? Otherwise, what's going to happen is few people will benefit, the others will be left behind. And that's the thing that bothers me. That's number one. The second thing that bothers me is around, with the use of AI, if not used correctly, it could lead to incorrect advice, incorrect suggestions, or things like, bias in data, things like incorrect data. So those things have to be done right. And the third is around policies. That is, we need to have more policies to drive more adoption of these technologies for agriculture. But they are not, they are concerns, not really drawbacks. They can be addressed. But right now, if not done right, it could lead to, it could have negative impact as well.
And Ranveer, you talked about using the smartphones as an inclusive manner to so that farmers can use technology in the field. So it is something under research, or it is something that is actually developed and used?
No, it's in advanced research. Right now, it's still in advanced research. Okay. It's not a product. Yeah. But, the paper is out there if people want to take and do something with it. Yeah.
Sure, yes. It will be a revolutionary solution, yeah. And then I have a question of Mr. Ayman. Do you think that data storage can affect the applicability of this solution in regions like Morocco or African countries in general?
Yeah, it's a challenge. This is a great point that lack of data can impact the adoption of these techniques. So being able to make these places data rich is critical. So that's why we need to get more farmers to start using data. And lack of data could be not just from the ability to bring data from the middle of the farm. It is also even satellite data, like, in the US and in the developed world, a lot of these farms are really big, thousands of acres. So if you're taking a satellite image, thousands of acres of the same farm make it easy to make predictions. In a lot of the emerging markets, in the same farm, farmers will plot multiple crops, so they do multiple cropping. If I'm taking a pixel of satellite imagery, it's not just reflecting one crop now, it's reflecting multiple crops. And that makes AI challenging. So there are some unique challenges that come up in places where there are smallholder farmers or in the emerging markets. But all that means is we need new techniques to address that. And for data, I completely agree. We need to have the right policies, the right incentives, so that more data can be collected and it can be digitized and stored in the cloud. Because AI is only as good as the data. If we don't have good data, we won't have good AI.
Exactly. No artificial intelligence without data. And here I have a question about using artificial intelligence and its impact on the cost of the food production. Maybe in general, using technology, it will have a cost of the food production.
Yeah. Sorry, the voice was breaking a bit. So you were asking about the last one, right? So will AI augment the cost of food production, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. If it
Yeah.
has any impact on increasing the food cost or production cost.
I think it will reduce the cost of food production. AI will help reduce the cost of food production because, you would use less chemicals, you would use less inputs, you will grow more food. So it will reduce there'll be more profits. Now, it'll become much more efficient to produce food using artificial intelligence.
Yes. And we see how we have seen with during your presentation how artificial intelligence especially could be used in precision irrigation and so yes,
Yeah.
it will be more efficient.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there is any other question.
Yeah, but this has been very exciting. Yeah, there's a big question.
Yeah. Yes. So the question is, it could be challenging sometimes to establish a direct correlation between the use of digital technologies and benefits of doing so over the short time, especially for farmers. A sustainable number of these benefits are shared between the farmers themselves, who would eventually see their yield increase, and the central authority who would have enough information for decision making and to be able to advise on sector-related issues. Considering this, what do you believe falls under the responsibility of government to drive the use of these technologies in agriculture, and what falls under the farmers themselves? How that this translates in cost? I can, yes. For instance, if government is going to be able to access the information retrieved from the farmers and use it for decision-making, statistics, or even for tax purposes, why should the farmers carry the cost of equipment, labor, and so forth? I don't know if it is clear or if you want me to repeat.
No, this is a good question. And I agree with what has been said here. That is, that farmers need to see more ROI. What is the return of investment? Why should they share data? And that is something that needs to be addressed, both either by the people who are benefiting from it, or the government needs to have the right policies around it. I think, the way government subsidizes agriculture quite a lot with seeds, with chemicals that are used, there should be incentives around digital agriculture as well, because everyone in the food value chain, in the agriculture value chain, would benefit from data from the farm. So I completely agree that, there is the cost of collecting the data. Part of it, farmers would benefit, but part of it is also around policies and the other users of the data who should subsidize the use of data in the farm. This is a policy level question. This is a business level question, and all the stakeholders need to work together on this one.
Thank you very much, Ranveer. Is there any other question? So, maybe if there is no other question, we can sum up and let's conclude this event. I would like to thank again Mr. Ranveer Chandra for accepting the invitation. Thank you very much for all the relevant information you have shared with us, and really it was very insightful and very relevant to us. And I would like also to thank the U.S. Mission in Rabat for the collaboration and for making this happen. So thank you very much again for being with us. And I don't know, Mr. Ranveer, if you want to say something before.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for hosting me. And, I'm really excited about a country like Morocco leading a lot of the work in this space. The climatic conditions under which farming happens in Morocco is quite challenging. And I think data and artificial intelligence could play a very critical role in making agriculture more efficient, more productive, and more sustainable in the region. We are building tech, but we would love to work with local partners, local researchers, scientists to help you drive this transformation. This is not going to happen unless the local experts get involved. And the experts here are not just digital experts. I'm also talking of people who are in agriculture and how do we work with them. So I would definitely encourage people to reach out. I would love to have a conversation and help you drive this transformation.
Yes. Thank you very much. Sustainability is not just a choice, but it's a necessity for all of us to secure our future. And so let's work together for a more sustainable Morocco and more sustainable world. Thank you very much to all, and see you for the next section, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.